Hello and welcome to the shop. A couple of weeks back, I was doing a YouTube live and Peter Thorndike happened to be watching, and he asked me if I had ever turned kangaroo leather. Now I'm going to be honest with you, and this is the same thing I said to him. I never even heard of it. I didn't know it was a thing. So Peter said, let me send you a couple of pieces. So he sent me this blank. Actually, this is one of, I think, 4 blanks he sent me. And it is kangaroo leather, and it is ready to be turned. All we need to do is tube it and take it to the lathe. So I'm super excited because I have no clue how this turns, how it's going to cut, what it's going to look like, but I cannot wait to try it out. So let's get over to the lathe and let's get this turned. I've got my blank prepared for turning, and drilling it out, gluing it up, trimming the ends, it basically worked just like an acrylic. So I have very high hopes for how this is going to turn. There are a lot of air pockets in it, so we'll deal with those at the end. But let's go ahead and see how she turns. What in the world? I was being so darn careful. Ugh. I hate that I lost this blank. It's like incredible looking. I'm looking around all over for the pieces, but I found one. I don't see any of the others. I'm going to dig a little more and see if I can get lucky and find them, because I would love to put it back together and continue turning. Man, that just burns me up. I found 2 of the pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and glue them back to the tube so that I don't lose them. Let me loosen this up a little bit. There we go. Let's see. Gets a liberal amount of CA in here. And first piece. Let me get some accelerator. There we go. Seat that first piece down pretty good, okay. Let's get the second piece on. Put some CA in there. Let's get it, oh shoot. Now where the heck did it go? Well, that's not good. I don't see where it landed. Well, this is really aggravating. I don't know where that piece fell. I saw it go straight down between the ways. I thought it would be laying on top of the motor. It wasn't. I've looked under the motor. I've brushed the motor off thinking, well, it had CA on it. Maybe it's stuck. I can't find that piece anywhere. And the bad thing is I'd already applied the CA to the blank, so now the shape has changed. So even if I do find it, it's not going to stick. So I have an idea. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to part this off, okay, where it's damaged right from here down. I wished I had that piece though, because I would have parted less off. But I'm going to part that off, and I have some really cool wood that was sent to me from Australia, which is where this blank came from. So I'm going to put a piece of wood on the end of here to finish off this blank. So hopefully it'll make I need to find one that looks really good with it. I've got 6 or 8 different types, and we're going to find something that looks really nice with this, and hopefully I can make it look pretty good. Let me start by parting off the excess on the end of this blank. I think I found my problem. Whenever I turned my lathe on to part this off, I was only running at 1400 RPMs. I needed to be running faster than that. That looks pretty good. Let me go get the wood that I have from Australia. I'm going to take this blank over, and I'm going to see if I can find a piece of wood that looks really nice with this blank. So I'll be back in a minute. I think I might have found a winner. This is a piece of Australian red gum. sent to me by Tommy Stridham, and I think it looks pretty good with the blank. I'm going to go ahead and get a piece cut off. We'll get it drilled and glued onto the tube, and we'll come back and get this blank turned. I cut off a piece of red gum, and I've got it chucked up. What I'm going to do is use my starter bit here to start myself a hole so I can make sure that I drill right down the center of this blank. Ultimately, I need a 27/64" hole down the center of this blank. I don't want to go with a bit that large right off the bat because this is a relatively small, maybe a 1/2 inch wide piece of wood. I'm going to start with a 7mm bit and put a hole in it, and then I'll come back and chase it with the 27/64. One more thing I want to do is I want to check my depth. So basically, I'm going to back up just a little bit to give myself a little extra. So we're going to drill in about that far. Got my 27/64" bit chucked up, and I'm going to check my speed. I think I might be going a little too fast. Yeah, I'm up around 1300. I could kind of tell I was moving fast with that 7mm bit because I could just really feel it in the tailstock. I'm down around 900. Let's see what happens now. Oh, before I go any further, let me shut the lathe off and measure my distance that I want to go in. I'm just going to go nice and slow. I'm going to go ahead and face this blank off with my parting tool. I'm going to check the fit with my blank. Looks pretty darn good. I like that. Let's go ahead now and mark this. And I'm going to get this parted off and we'll get it glued up to the blank. And let me do this. I'm going to mark this end here so I know which end gets glued to the blank. There we go, and that should provide a very nice little fit. So I'm going to go get this glued up, and when the glue is good and dry, we'll come back and finish turning. I've given the CA glue plenty of time to dry. I'm ready now to go ahead and continue turning this blank. And that turned down quite nicely. I am happy with how it turned down. I was hoping that wood was going to be a little darker, so we'll see what happens there. Ooh, I got a little chip out on this side. Dang it. This has proven to be quite challenging. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on filling some of these holes, and I'm going to go back and see if I can find a darker wood and basically put another loop on the end of this. Just to kind of decorate it up a little bit. That goes well with the lighter, but I want to darken it up. But let me see about filling some of these holes. Just going to take the medium CA and level them out. I'm trying to use the activator straight down. If I shoot at an angle, it's liable to cause it to run around the blank. I'm trying to minimize that as much as possible. Looks like I'm getting pretty close. I think the only way to finalize this would be to give it one more pass with the tool, clean off all these little lumps I've put in it. However, I don't think I want to do that until I fix the end, because I'd like to blend whatever I do on the end into the rest of the blank. Let's see. Looking pretty good now. I think I've got all of the holes filled. What I'm going to do now is see what I can find in the way of wood to cap this in down here. That just is a real stinker, but I don't know what else to do about that. It looks like it just, just gave way. It's a pretty thin piece. All right, let me see what I can find. I don't really have any darker wood. That was about as dark as I had, but I got this jacaranda, maybe, that Tommy also sent me from Australia. And I'm thinking, what do you think? Maybe a little light, just a light ring there, and then we'll make this the top of the pin, this the bottom. Maybe that'll decorate it up. Let me cut a little chunk of this off and see what happens. I'm ready to start drilling this. I'm going to use a center bit once again. I actually have some darker wood, but I really wanted to stick with a theme of wood from Australia since that's what I started with. So we're going to go ahead, do the same thing we did where we use a centering bit to get a nice hole. We'll go 7mm, and then we'll bring it up to 27/64. We don't have to go in as far on this one because we're just going to do the end of the blank. So let's take it in a little bit. All right, let's get switched out for the 27/64. I'm going to go in just a little bit deeper because what I'm concerned about is I noticed that bit was jumping around. I'm worried that it may have wallowed out the front of the hole, and then once it's seated in, it went straight on in. So I could take my parting tool and clean this up until I've got a really nice tight fit with the tube. So what I want to do now is we're going to part it off, about a 1/4 inch back, and we'll just keep doing that and testing, and eventually we're going to hit a nice sweet spot. That's a pretty good fit. I think I'm just going to clean the face up a little bit and go with that. You can see we do have a really nice fit around the tube, and I think it's going to work out real well. I'm just going to go ahead and part this chipped out section off. Well, I got a little more than I bargained for. I tell you what, I am not going to lose this blank. I don't care. I'm going to make this thing work. I'm going to get another piece of this wood, and I'll drill it and cut it, and we're going to work on this again. Yeah, I'm not losing this one. We're going to get it back. I've already got my starter hole in this blank from the first go round, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick up where I left off. This blank as well is loose on the end, so I'm going to go ahead and part it back a little ways and see if we can get a tighter fit. That looks really nice. All right, let me get a chunk cut off. I'm going to finish parting off the rest of the broken material here. Now I'm going to go get this block glued onto the end of this blank. We'll get it trimmed up and back on the lathe. So what do you say we give this one more try? Keep your fingers crossed. I'm liking the look of the blank. I do see a couple of more little divots that are going to need to be filled. So let's get started on those. If we don't fill these, what will happen is, as we sand, they will fill up with sanding dust, and especially if we sand with the micro mesh pads, that'll pick up that white silky stuff or silty stuff, and we'll end up not having a really nice looking blank. It'll have these white spots in it, and I don't want that. I went to too much trouble to save this one. I'm going to do my best to make it look nice. I'm doing a little overkill here. Some of these spots are super small, but I don't want to take any chances. Okay, I'm going to let this set for a few minutes. Even though I hit it with the activator, I want it to set for a few minutes and kind of dry on its own, because the surface is dry, but beneath the surface it needs to finish curing. I'll be back in a minute. Let's see if we can very carefully clean this blank up. It looks pretty good. I'm thinking we stop and we start sanding. We'll take the rest of this off with sandpaper. It's down to where I can't really feel it. You can see it, but the sandpaper should make it disappear. You know what? Famous last words. One more pass. I did feel one. Now that's way better. Look at that. Okay, we're done with the gouge. We're going to sandpaper. I'm really liking this blank. It's looking beautiful. Just take a look at that. Cleaning it up with a little denatured alcohol here. It's going to be really nice when it's finished. I'm going to let it dry for a few minutes and then we'll come back and get CA finish put on it. I finished all the applications of my CA glue. I'm ready now to micro mesh this blank. Take a look at that. That is absolutely gorgeous. Let me get the buffing wheels on here. We're going to buff this blank up and it should look amazing. Well, this blank was truly a challenge for me to turn, but if you follow me long enough, you know one thing I like is a good challenge. And I truly enjoyed making this blank for you guys. Now I'm going to tell you another story. Not only was the blank challenging, I didn't have the camera on, but now I wish that I had, because this is a Gatsby pin kit and it was damaged at a show. And I'll tell you guys, if you're going to do shows, one thing you've got to watch out for is children. People will come to your table, they've got their kid with them, and they'll stand there and watch the kid pick up everything. And they want to take the pins, they want to pull them apart, and they want to twist them, and they end up damaging a lot of your merchandise. And then the parent will just take it away from the kid, lay it down, and walk off. And, you know, it happens, okay? So be ready for that. But this was a real bugger to take apart. Normally, this little ring here is part of this back section of the Gatsby. When I knocked it apart, this piece came out, this piece stayed in the pin because the punch wasn't big enough to get the outer ring. So then I had to flip it over, knock the little threaded insert out of the front end, and then take a third punch and knock that out. It shouldn't be an issue assembling it. We should be able to press it all together, but we just are going to take our time and be super careful with it. So disassembling the pin was just as much of a challenge as turning the blank. I thought you would enjoy that story. So let's go ahead and see about putting this thing together. Now, if we look at this, this has a little ring on it. See that little ring? Whenever you see that little ring, that is the tapered part. So that lets me know that it slides onto here like this. And it's not going to go all the way on because I need to press this back down into that piece. And we're going to do that. Let's take a look. You know what? If you look at this blank, let me make sure I'm in focus here because sometimes my camera will go out of focus. This side has really got a lot of interest to it. This side, not so much. So I'm going to press this in to where the clip is right down the less interesting side so you get more visual appeal out of the blank. So we're going to start it, and then I'm going to pull it apart and hold the clip in place to finish pressing it exactly where I want it on the back of the blank. Okay, that's a good start. Now, make sure we're in focus there. Let me find, I think this is it. See, because take a look. There's that area right there. It's kind of dark, but you flip it over, look at all that. See, that's what I want to see when I look at the pin. So we're going to put the clip right there. All right, and let's get this together, and we're going to press it in nice and tight. Okay. That worked out real well. that just threads off. There's your transmission. Thread that right back in. The cap will pull off. See, and there's the transmission there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to press this front piece into the pin. Okay, and once again, we're going to just go really slow because I want to make sure I press it straight in. Okay, that went well. Whoops, I just realized I stuck my arm right in the way. I'm sorry about that. But look at that, I've got a beautiful fit. It's going to make for a gorgeous pin. And then the front half just has a ink refill with a spring in the nib. And that threads right onto the little piece we punched in. Oops, hang on a second. I always have this trouble with the Gatsby's. Need to make sure that the ink seats into the transmission. Let me take the transmission out of there for a second. There we go. We'll do it the other way. The Gatsby's can be a little tricky. There we go. See how it goes into the transmission? I just wasn't getting it inside the transmission, which is what's going to push it forward and pull it out of the blank, or the pin. Well, I'm a little bit shy on that one. It's just not, I must have shortened my tube up with everything that I did to it, so it's not fully retracting. I'm going to show you guys a little trick to fix that. This is our ink refill, and we're going to pull this little black cap out of the back of it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take this over to our sander, our disc sander, and we're just going to ever so slightly sand just about that much off of it, which will allow the ink to retract fully into the pin. Go ahead and fire up the sander. Now we take our ink refill and we'll snap our black cap back into it. Put our spring on the end of it, slide it into the pin. We thread our transmission. And now our ink seats nicely. Let me get a better focus there. You can see the ink seats nicely inside of the pin. Let's just snap our cap onto the back of it. And there we have a beautiful pin. Now this pin I won't be able to sell because with the ink cartridge being shorter like that, you know, the average consumer, you want them to be able to pick one up at their favorite office supply store and you know, replace the ink in their pen. So this will be a pen that I'll give to probably a friend or a family member, and I'll explain to them what I did, and in the future, you know, as they need to replace the ink, they can just, you know, holler at me and I'll sand that cartridge down for them. But I think I made a stunning pen. I really love this. This black and gold Gatsby is a nice kit. Really like it. I would really like to thank you for joining me for the turning of this Kangaroo Leather ink pen. I really enjoyed doing this, even though it was a super challenge. But you know me, if you follow me long enough, I love a good challenge. And I finally thought, you know, the blank is done. I've got it. All I got to do is put it in a pen kit. All of the issues are over. So I didn't have a pen kit. So I went and got one that had been damaged at a show, and I start to knock it apart, and I have issues taking it apart. But we ended up getting over that. I really wished I had filmed that part. I didn't anticipate issues. Next time I have a Gatsby that I knock apart, I will film it because, you know, just in case that happens again, I want to be able to show you. And I thought, okay, finally got over that. We press it together. I start assembling it, and I'll be darned if the ink cartridge is too long. So I'm not sure how I managed to do that. I'm guessing down at this end of the pin, when I initially sanded the blank flat, and then I put the first piece on there, I sanded it flat again, and then I put the second piece on there and sanded it flat a third time. And all I can presume is that I must have nicked a little bit of the brass off each time and literally shortened the tube, which is a darn shame because this is just a killer pen. I'm super happy about it. Like I said, I have a friend in mind who I'm going to give this to, and I think they're going to really like it. And I'll let them know that the ink is shorter than normal, and when they run out, holler at me. And it takes 2 seconds. I'll touch the ink cartridge up for them, and they'll be back in business. But I think they'll really enjoy this pen. I truly appreciate you hanging out with me. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great evening, everybody.